I came across the incredible Ebenezer Bassett story really by accident. I was on my first assignment as a young diplomat in the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean. And it's common when you first arrive, you have a courtesy call with the ambassador and the senior staff. And I remember going to meet with our chief of mission, and I remember the walls of the hallway lined with dozens of photos of our previous chiefs of mission. And in this early period, the U.S. assigned diplomats to cover both sides of the island of Hispaniola, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And several of our first diplomats were based in Port-au-Prince, but were actually responsible for both countries. What struck me at looking at these portraits was that fairly early on, we had sent African Americans to serve as our chief diplomat there. I, of course, recognized the face of the great abolitionist Frederick Douglass. I hadn't even realized that he had been a diplomat. But I also saw several faces of black men who preceded him. Men like John Langston, John Thompson. But that first man, Ebenezer Bassett, who was he? I had never even heard the name and didn't know anything about him. Now, this was 1869 when he first came to the Caribbean. It was just after the U.S. Civil War and during the time of Reconstruction. President Ulysses S. Grant broke the diplomatic color barrier by naming Bassett as Minister Resident to Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and Bassett was there 8 years as the president's envoy. I was really surprised that such a groundbreaking figure had been lost to history. As it turns out, during Bassett's assignment, he confronted a series of civil wars, coup d'etat, tropical illnesses, refugee crises, and personal threats against his life. But really throughout it all, his courage in the face of all these challenges is what stood out. His bravery and leadership in dealing with the Haitian and Dominican governments, as well as very difficult policy formulation in Washington. But his stellar diplomatic career was really just part of an incredible story. Bassett came from a groundbreaking family in Connecticut whose ancestors had been slaves. Bassett himself integrated the Connecticut Teachers College in 1854, and he later on went to become a leading educator, a school principal, an abolitionist, and then activist in the years of the Civil War. And it was because of this background that President Grant chose him to become America's representative in the Caribbean. And it was just such an incredible time, and he really served with great distinction. Then Ebenezer Bassett died in 1908 and had almost been forgotten in the century since his death. But his legacy actually lives on, and thanks to him, we were able to integrate our diplomatic corps. We all know Colin Powell is the first African-American Secretary of State, but it was actually Bassett that paved his way. For those of us in the current Foreign Service, Bassett's name and his legacy is one I think we should all know. And the American public should also recognize what a trailblazer Bassett was and understand how his service and his legacy affects us even today.